Build back better, blah blah blah. Green economy, blah blah blah. Net zero by 2050, blah blah blah.
Greta Thunberg famously criticized multilateralism as a whole lot of talk. Yes, there's a lot of talking that goes on in the United Nations, but that's part of our role.
A responsibility to deliver solutions.
And enhance nature's contributions to people.
Ozone depleting chemicals we have.
Draft Resolution A/76.
The United Nations process we facilitate is structured to allow every member state to have its say. Today, we'll guide you through the intricate world of international diplomacy to understand just how a treaty is created through the United Nations system. The first step is recognizing a global and transboundary issue that requires collective action. One example is the tragic mercury poisoning in Minamata Bay, Japan. First officially recognized in 1956, this disaster brought the dangers of mercury pollution to the world's attention and underscored the urgent need for international action. As a result, the Minamata Convention on Mercury was adopted, aiming to address and mitigate the impacts of mercury pollution globally. Next, the issue at hand is brought to the attention of United Nations member states. Member states, often guided by scientific findings, non-governmental organizations and civil society, push for the topic to be included in the United Nations agenda. This stage involves debates and discussions to establish a consensus on the issue and the need for a treaty. Let me give you an example. In 2022, at the United Nations Environment Assembly, member states recognized the growing problem of plastic pollution and its impact on oceans, wildlife, and human health.
The draft resolution entitled End Plastic Pollution, it is so decided.
They agreed to begin the process to create an international, legally binding agreement on plastic pollution, including in the marine environment. Once the issue is on the agenda, the United Nations convenes intergovernmental negotiations. These involve representatives from all member states who meet regularly to discuss scope, objectives, and specific commitments. This stage can take years as member states work through their positions to find common ground. For instance, the Vienna Convention for the Protection of the Ozone Layer provided the framework for the international cooperation that led to the Montreal Protocol, which specifically addresses the phase-out of ozone-depleting substances. Extensive negotiations took place to balance environmental protection with economic considerations. During negotiations, a draft text is prepared. This undergoes multiple revisions as member states weigh in with their perspectives and negotiate the precise language and terms. Experts, including scientists and legal advisors, often contribute to ensuring the treaty is ambitious, robust, and implementable. The goal is to reach an agreement among all members on the draft final text. This can involve intense negotiations and review amongst member states right up to the last minute. Once an agreement is reached and the gavel goes down on a draft, the final text is presented for adoption. After a treaty is adopted, countries can sign it to show that they intend to follow it. However, the treaty only enters into force once a certain number of countries ratify it. This means they formally approve it through their own internal procedures and then notify other parties about their consent to be bound by it. Once in force, the treaty applies to all countries that have ratified it and any others that can join later through a process called accession. The next step is implementation, where member states must integrate the treaty's provisions into their own national laws and policies. The United Nations often establishes mechanisms to monitor compliance and support member states in meeting their commitment. Creating an international and binding treaty through the United Nations system is a complex multi-step process requiring cooperation and commitment from all member states. As we've seen with the Montreal Protocol and the Minamata Convention, and now with the ongoing plastic treaty negotiations, it's a journey of meticulous diplomacy aimed at addressing some of the world's most pressing environmental issues. Every treaty represents a collective effort for a healthier planet. Multilateralism at its best.